little things like this are what save you money. The fact that Chime has built this in to the platform and that they have the transaction manager and you have a place to keep all of your accounting in one place. This is, I think, the smallest feature on Chime, but it's super powerful because it allows you to bring all of this together and have everything like a business in a box. What's up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of the Weekly Chime. I think we're on number 106. Does that sound about right, Trenton?
I think so.
Today, Trenton and I are talking about transaction management. I say Trenton and I are going to talk about it. Trenton is going to talk about transaction management, and I'm going to learn something new today. Trenton, what do you have for us today?
All right, let's kind of walk through this. Pretty much today, we're just going to kind of go over, how to use the transaction management system if that's something you would like to use. It's definitely a section to where you can help keep track of your transactions, but definitely not something that I would suggest to be your final solution for transactions. But this is definitely a way to keep them connected with your leads that you have. So this is the transaction management section in Chime. You're able to kind of track where they're at in the process of each transaction. So today we're going to be kind of going over just like a little bit of an overview. We're going to go over how to create and manage checklists, how to manage your documents if you'd like to attach any, assigning vendor partners and contacts to a transaction if you want to share some of your information, and then we'll open it up for a little Q&A at the end here.
Sweet.
But this is like I said, this is the section here, and you can track your purchases. You can track your listings if you have any leases, and then other. And so these are the four options that you have, and they're the only options that you have. And if you want to kind of track maybe some lending options, with mortgages and stuff like that, well, depending on what your team structure is, that's a good option for using other. But for the most part, the majority of you guys will probably just be using the purchase and listing section here. And like I said, it's very user-friendly, and you can kind of track everything throughout a system, kind of like a pipeline for your leads. And so here's kind of a bigger image of this. Before we jump into it, actually, we're currently not using the transaction management section, but I wanted to show you guys an image of what it looks like if for someone or for a team that is using it. You can see here's kind of like a pipeline to where you see which section that they're in. And so it looks like this one here, of all the transactions that they have, they're at 200 million here. They have pre-contract, under contract, pending, offers pending, and so those will continue to flow through here. And so there's two different options of where you can view this. And this is the list view. And if I go back, this is a crazy name that they came up with, and I can't remember what the specific name of it, but it's the more creative, detailed view that I would prefer just because it's more of a visual versus here is more of a list. Each one of these sections up here for your pipeline, you can actually adjust by hitting the settings button. So this settings button will allow for you to add additional columns here if you need to. If you want to switch between this view and this view here, it's actually going to be this toggle of where you have the little four squares versus the list section here. Down here, you'll be able to search any transaction by the address, by any lead name, by any note that is in your current system. So that's very helpful if you're looking to do that. You can also see what stage they're in here. When you're looking at the all section, you can quickly see the pricing, when the closing dates are, and things like that. So it's pretty nice to where you can be able to filter out and adjust the columns that work for you. If you want to see more than just 10 transactions down here, you can. If you like the simplified view, obviously just kind of swipe through here and you can do that. And then if you want to add a transaction, it's as simple as just clicking the add button. You can also add it from a lead detail page as well. But this is the simplest way to get that added.
The thing that I like about this transaction manager is that it really shows you, like at a glance, if you're running a busy team, even if you're a single agent, it doesn't really matter. You can look at where all of your deals are at a glance. You can see what you have in pre-contract, what you have in under contract, what you have pending, what you have closing, and then what you've closed for the year. If you want a quick way to look at your numbers throughout the year, this should give you a pretty good overview of what your business looks like. So that's my main reason that I love this. The other thing you can do with it is you can actually switch between purchase and listing. So you can actually see if you have different members on your team, if you have buyer's agents and listing agents, you can actually see who's doing what. And if you are a single agent and you want to see, do I do more buy sides or do I do more list sides? You can actually take a look at your numbers at the end of the year and track what you're doing. So it's very, very cool. They've made a lot of improvements in the transaction manager over the last 6 months, and they just keep improving it every day. And this is really, it looks good. I'm really impressed.
I think that's a good point to make there, is that you can, as either a single agent, you're able to track both, separately and be able to kind of compare. But also if you're kind of a team owner, a team management, or something like that, you could then sort by your specific agents. So you can keep track of each specific one. Or if you want to look at it more of a team view, you can do that as well. So that's really nice how that works out there. So some of the key benefits here, why you should be using the transaction management system. It's a great way to improve your organization. Like Brett just kind of mentioned, you can see all of your transactions, see how you're doing, seeing what stages that they're in. And of course, it's going to increase efficiency as well, because you're going to be able to quickly see where you're at. You don't have to go search for anything. It does talk to other transaction management systems such as Brokerment. I believe there's a couple others as well, but that's kind of the biggest one that I saw that Chime speaks most directly with. And then as well, you can see all your transactions, but the biggest other thing that they have is checklists, documents, and contacts. And so you're able to create specific checklists that you want to add, so that way you're following a system. Maybe it's, contact your specific buyer at this time. Maybe it's follow up with this type of information. Maybe it's I need to give a phone call before escrow starts, things like that. And then you're able to add as many documents as you want, and to kind of keep track of everything. And then also you can add different contacts, such as vendor contacts or partner contacts, or maybe it's a lender or something of that nature. And so the big thing here is the creating and managing checklist that we kind of just touched on. Each one kind of breaks down each step into manageable tasks with deadlines, which is very helpful for you. This will allow for you to keep track of things. If you're using the task management system already with smart plans, that should seem very familiar to you. And so you're going to be able to ensure a smoother transaction. How to create a new checklist template, we'll go specifically into this, but real quickly, it's pretty simple here. You're going to navigate to the checklist template manager under the settings tab. And then this is where you can customize tasks, set deadlines, or assign tasks to specific team members. If you want to apply a checklist to a transaction, it's kind of like applying a smart plan to a lead. And so that way it's just going to get added, and each task will get assigned there. And so then once you do that, you can assign it either to the people page or as from the transaction system as well. So that's kind of nice, that the flexibility there, whichever view you're looking for. And then you could also update and track the progress on the checklist. So the checklists are really nice as far as a way to manage the process in which you are in doing this transaction. And so that's going to make life easier for you. And so I kind of broke this down of where and how to do this. So the big thing is going to the settings section, going over to the transactions checklist templates section, and then you're going to go to add checklist. And so down here in this bottom left, this is what that add checklist looks like. So you can either add it for purchase or listing or lease or other. So that's the same type of how you do a smart plan with either buyer and seller, renter, or other like that. And so then on each stage here, remember, because each stage we have like a pipeline, each stage you can add a different task. And so that task might look like, adding a pre-qualification document. And then you pick what due date it is. Is it after or before a certain date? And then you can assign it to, is it the listing agent? Is it to the database manager? Is it to your mortgage lender? Whoever that gets assigned to, that's where you can then do that. And so these checklists here, you can do a text, you can do pretty much whatever you're looking for as a task. And so this is a very simplified way of creating that checklist and then being able to then assign it to an actual transaction. And then managing documents, this is another area. So we have our checklist, and then we can add in documents and upload them and help organize them as well. Now, this is a step that, you don't have to do, but it will allow for you to be able to track your transactions. And then if there is a specific document that you have compiled in a different folder on your desktop, or, you forget where you put it, or you can't find it, at least this way you've uploaded all 5 to 10 important documents right into the transaction. And so again, it's all readily available. You're going to see everything right in that transaction, and it'll just be allowed for you to access this information in a lot simpler way than having to go search for it elsewhere.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest part of this, right? Is that everything is in one place. That makes it easy to find, which when you have the opportunity to be able to look at your business at a glance very quickly, it allows you to make decisions very quickly. So that's a huge feature.
Totally agree there. I think it's the huge part of just having it all compiled in one place, and it's going to make things simpler. And so then the best part about this is that you can also share these documents with clients and partners. And so you can add specific vendor partners to the Chime system to be able to share different notes and things like that. And so once you're in the actual transaction here, so what we were showing you is more of the overview and the other sections of where you could see all the transactions. But now that we're actually into this individual transaction here, so you can see up here you have the address, if it's a purchase or a listing, what lead is associated with, the basic information of, what the pricing is, what the commission is, what's your agent revenue, things like that. You can adjust the different close dates, expected close dates, and I believe you can also hit the settings button and add additional ones as well. Same thing with this basic info. If you click this little edit button up here, you're able to even add in other information as well. I think you can even add custom fields as well. So then you can see your checklist section was here. And if you just go to documents, this is where you can upload all the documents. You'll be able to select the file. Maybe it's to Dropbox, maybe it's to Google Drive. And so then once that's added, you're good to go. And then here's an example of kind of like what that checklist looks like. So you can see that once they're in the pending section, which is where they're living right now, here's the information that they need to do. So it might be schedule the next walkthrough, or, when they're on the contract, schedule inspections, follow up on banking statements, transfer utilities. So it's also not necessarily like a task for you to do, but it's also a task to remind you of all these important things that need to happen at this type of a stage. That also allows for you to make sure that, did you send out your transfer utilities document? That's going to go through everything of that nature. Maybe it's the schedule inspections. And so then you have a list of inspections that need to go out. Maybe it shows at what time they need to go out. And then maybe some of the information as far as, what the inspection entails. Maybe it's the schedule next walkthrough. So you're making sure that, you're having this already kind of scheduled, but it also is a nice reminder for you to then be able to do that. And so then what's nice about this is with each of these checklist tasks, you can assign either a call, maybe it's a text, maybe it's an email, maybe this is where you need to upload the signed document, before you move into the next stage. So it's just a nice compiled way, visually appealing for sure, and just, where everything is housed as well. And so let's say we wanted to add a vendor partner or even a contact to a transaction. It's pretty simple. You're just going to go to the Contacts tab and click Add New Contact or Add New Vendor Partner, fill in that necessary information, and you're good to go. And so that once you have that, this is where you can start assigning them specific transactions. and then they're able to see specific information under, what you're sharing with them, because maybe you want the mortgage lender to be up to date as far as where they're at in the process. And so this will allow for them to have a visual versus trying to reach out to you and say, okay, well, where are we at now? What's next? And so this way they can easily see that. And so in order to do that, you're going to go to your settings section. You can go down to team vendor partner. This is where you can add a vendor partner up here once you get down to this section in here. Then it's as simple as just filling out their information and then what type of custom role that they'll be using. And so the different role type will allow for them to see specific information. And then here's something simple that you can kind of email out to them. Just ask for them that you need services on a new transaction. And then it sends the lead information so that they can go directly into that transaction. And so it makes it really easily able for the other vendor partner to just be able to pop in there, see their information. Maybe they have a checklist item that they need to fill out. So they'll be able to keep track of that pretty simply there. So that's pretty much what I had there for the transaction management system. We can go in here and actually look at it to kind of walk through what we kind of just shared. And maybe this might be a little bit more simpler to understand. So give me 1 second there. Here's kind of where we mentioned, you can switch to the purchase, listing, lease, other to keep track of where you're at. Here's where you can hit add new transaction. This would be the property address. So you can type in whatever property address that it would be. You can see a different one here. Once you kind of click on that, it'll show you which one specifically. And what's nice is it opens it right up, which one it is. And so then you can assign the transaction owner, what lead is attached to. This is where you would type in a name, the transaction stage of where you want to put them into. Then you can hit save. Here's kind of where I mentioned the different views. So you have a list view versus this view, which is nice that you can kind of just slide this through as well. Oops, I think I froze it. I thought that was pretty neat when they added that feature, just because it makes it simpler to kind of push them along.
Drag and drop.
Yep. Where the list is as simple as just selecting this as well. So that's pretty easy there. There's a lot of columns here. And if you hit columns, you can arrange them or hide which ones you don't want to see. And then that'll make it easier for you to kind of be able to scroll through and keep track of everything. Let's say there's specific things like the contract date that you want to have up towards the top. You just move that up there, and then that's going to be kind of your first section here. If you go to this other view, though, you do lose a lot of that information that is shown. But it also depends on what type of are you visual as far as the graphic type, or are you more visual as far as seeing everything that's of important information for you?
And I was just going to say, that's the beautiful part about this is you can be both, right? You can be a visual person, or you can be a very text-based systems person. You don't have to be. Chime allows you to do both.
Yes, that's what's nice about that. Let's see, if we went up to this settings thing here was another section we kind of went over. Customize transaction stages. So here's where you can start adding new stages. So maybe it's this is probably not what you would use, but listing contracts, and then you could put that up here. Maybe it's a open house or something. Again, that probably isn't what you would want, but I'm just trying to think of something to
right
to go through there. So let's say you don't want that one. It's as simple as just exiting out, hitting save, and then that one is removed as well. If you have too many, though, that's where you're not going to be able to see everything here. So that's kind of why it's nice just to have probably a simplified view, what works best for you, and how to keep them trackable. Once we get into the actual transaction, this is kind of where this looks like. And what's nice is that you can switch the pipeline just by clicking each one of these stages, which I think is, again, a nice user-friendly way of keeping track of this. There is a way to delete the transaction up here. If you had a integration, let's just say Brokerman, you'd be able to update something from here to be able to go directly to that Brokerman page. Here's kind of where the basic info where we said if you continue to add additional stuff, that's where you can have this information all show up here. You obviously have your basic info and stuff like that. You have your different dates that you can keep track of. And so I think I hit a button. I think I hit the settings button to be able to add the custom fields like we mentioned as well. So if you need to add any type of information there, you can do that. Otherwise, here's where a bunch of the dates kind of live. Again, to keep track of everything as far as, are you missing stuff? Did you hit the right stuff? Did you send it out? Things like that. Shows the property down here. Here's where if we were to add a checklist template, I don't have any created, but if we added an individual task, here's kind of what that would look like. You can assign it to whoever that is, whatever date it needs to be done, whatever stage that it needs to be done with. If you need to upload a document or something, you can do that. Like this task requires uploading a document to complete. Like this could be nice because you need to upload the buyer's agreement before you can move them through. Or maybe you need to upload the contract. So that's where that works out really well. Accounting, obviously you can keep track of some additional stuff here. Contacts would be if you wanted to add additional contacts in here. I think that's pretty neat. Again, if you start adding any documents, you can add documents in here. And then it shows a nice history view, kind of like on the people page where you go into elite details and it shows you everything that's happened as well. If you need to keep track of something, you're wondering, why did that get changed or something?
So I want to do a quick little summary here, because I know some people are watching this that don't have Chime, and some people that are watching this do have Chime. And so one of the things that I absolutely love that Chime does, and I don't work for Chime. I should probably get that out of the way. I do not. I'm just a user. But what I will tell you is little things like this are what save you money over the course of your business, over the course of your year. This is the kind of stuff that saves you money. And so the fact that Chime has built this in to the platform and that they have the transaction manager and you have a place to keep all of your accounting in one place, and you have a place to keep all of your, if you go back to the contacts page, when you have stuff like this, you can start determining what vendors you use the most of. And if you're anything like me and you like having vendors sponsor some of your events, you can go back through and you can see how many different times you used, let's say, your home inspector, or how many times you used your home warranty company. And you can go back to them at the end of the year and be like, hey, we worked together 142 times last year. Hey, how about when we do our client event, you come in and you do a presentation of some form, or you're there, or you want to sponsor it, or something like that. It shows you as a business owner how many times you're using different vendors in your business. It's allowing you to keep track of all of that. And so if you're not using Chime, this is just one of the little tiny things. Like this is, I think, the smallest feature on Chime, but it's super powerful because it allows you to bring all of this together and have everything like a business in a box, if you would. So I'm really, really glad we did a cover transaction management, because this is something that, Trent, I don't think we've actually talked about in 106 episodes on this weekly Chime. I don't think this is something we've actually covered, and it's mainly because I don't think a ton of Chime users actually utilize this. So if you're not utilizing the transaction management system within Chime, my advice to you, give it a whirl on your next transaction. Don't stop what you're doing wherever else you're doing it. If you use Paperless Pipeline or SkySlope or something like that, don't stop using that. Just in addition to that, try to put everything into Chime just so you can start tracking this and start trying it out in your business, because it comes with the platform. It's free with the platform. You might as well give it a whirl. So it is constantly under improvement too. I remember, dude, what was it, like 6 months ago that they just started pumping in some of the other fun stuff you can do with it, like emailing out each one of your contacts within the little contacts page that you had up there. You can send out templated emails and stuff. It's getting really cool, and they're building it good. They're building it right. So it's very, very impressive.
And the lines of that is, keep up to date on the Chime updates, because they're constantly adding different stuff. Things are always changing. Once you click on that button, you can see all the updates here. You can see that they did one 15 days ago, which means that there should probably be one any day now.
Yep.
They're pretty up to date on that. There's just a bunch of different stuff here, maybe not specifically to transaction management, but in this one, it looks like Zapier transaction integration. So again, they're trying to add these different things. If we look at the last one here, this might be not specific to that either. But if you would think about that, in the last 6 months, yes, this has drastically changed. There wasn't this viewpoint before. There was only just the list. There wasn't the ability to adjust these different stages. Even if you're not using it for all that it's worth, I think it's really beneficial to at least, have it displayed as far as this type of viewpoint. You connect all your leads that you're working with. At the very least, when you need to go look at who am I working with right now, or, what's my commission looking like, all you got to do is hit transactions, purchase, and it'll show you all the information.
My favorite part of it is that it actually, so you have your leads in your database, for example, like they're in your CRM. As soon as you start a transaction with them, Chime will assign those parties. Let's say you had a really awesome day and you double-sided a transaction. You've got buyer and seller, and both of those were leads that were in your database before. Now those are being tagged in your transaction manager. And so when you go at the end of the year and you start looking at deals that you did and leads that you did and lead sources that you're using, everybody always talks to me when I'm coaching them. They're talking like, well, how do I track my lead sources? Well, it's really easy. You need a system that does it for you. And so Chime will track all of your lead sources. So if you put all your transactions in here, at the end of the year, it's going to be like, oh, by the way, here's how many deals you did that came through Google pay-per-click. Here's how many deals that came in through Facebook ads. Here's how many deals came in through Zillow. Here's your overall lead conversion on those. And by the way, you take what you spent on each lead source versus how much you made from each lead source, and now you can start calculating your ROI. It's a very good tool to have. It's a very good tool to use, and it definitely keeps you engaged in your business, being able to make business-related decisions that are numbers-based, not just, I don't think this lead source is doing that much for me. Well, on paper, it's doing a ton for you. So just gives you a little bit more insight into your business. And I think that's super important, especially as we move through 2023.
I agree. And like we mentioned, it's always being updated. Things are always changing. So make sure you're keeping track of that Chime updates page, because like I said, it's probably every 2-3 weeks that there's a new update that comes out. Maybe it is for the transaction management system. Maybe it's for, improving integrations. Maybe it's for, improving something on the people page that you've been asking for, or a way to share different listings in a different way.
Yeah.
So
my all-time favorite thing about Chime is that I think it's every 20 days. I think they're on the 20-day cycle. It might be 25-day. But either way, every about 20 days, we get an update. And so if you want to talk about a company that cares so much about the platform that they literally have developers constantly improving, there's an entire Facebook group that Chime users have access to, and it's their product feedback and discovery area. And so if you go, hey, I really would love this feature, they'll literally take that from the little Facebook group. They will start working to see if they can implement that in some way, shape, or form. Now, I personally have put in, I think the product development team doesn't really like me that much because I put in requests pretty much every day. But when you start seeing those updates come out, stuff gets put in there, and they're trying really hard to listen to their customers, to listen to what people want, and then build the platform around that. And it really has turned, I mean, I've been with them now. My 5-year anniversary with Chime comes next week, actually next Wednesday. Yeah, it's 5-year anniversary. And so if I look back, I have a screenshot from like back 5 years ago. Dude, totally different. It's totally different than what it used to look like. So it's constantly upgrading or constantly updating and improving and changing, which is a good thing because they really are trying to be a business in a box. So yeah, dude, I'm so glad you did this today. I saw that just before I logged in. I was like, oh, we're talking about transaction manager. I'm like, I don't think we've ever talked about that on here.
Yeah, that's crazy that you haven't ever mentioned that.
Right?
It's a huge part of
yeah,
investigator. So yeah,
I'm really glad you did that. Thank you, Trenton. I appreciate all the insight on that, dude. And the slide deck, that was money. How do people get a hold of you?
Definitely through LinkedIn. That's my place to go.
You're really trying to build that LinkedIn thing, aren't you?
Yeah, I really like it. I forgot what the actual link is, but first name, last name, you can find me on there.
Okay.
I think it's just as simple as literally, I think it's like linkedin.com/in/Trenton Bodine.
Jeez, man. I do not have a LinkedIn, so you cannot find me on LinkedIn, but you can find me at brettbakercoaching.com. Trenton, thanks for being on here. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning. Thanks for talking Chime. If you guys have any questions, there is a Chime Facebook group for Chime users. If you're not a Chime user yet, hit up chimedemo.com and check out all that Chime has for you. Trenton, thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Yes, thank you, Brett.
Talk soon.
See ya.
See you guys.